It's been nearly 2 years since the release of the Rico heist, and while I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, it was generally well received by the community, even if it was more for the amount of money that was made with it. Heists have generally followed a release schedule of a new heist every 2 years, if you don't count the casino and Rico heist being 1 year away from each other. So I got to thinking, what would I like to see in the next Heist DLC? The first issue we would face is making sure that it will be fresh and new. If you look at what we had so far, you can tell this might be pretty difficult, though not impossible. The original heist covered the bank robbing, Doomsday covered saving the world, Casino covered, well, the casino, and Rico covered the drug lord on a tropical island. So what's there left that we could be doing in the next heist? I'd argue try and make the next heist be a bit more of a challenge. Let's throw in some more hacks and layers to it before you make it to the finale and make every approach unique as well. I'd argue that Rico is so easy and that makes it also really a lot less interesting to play. I guess with any heist that you do multiple times, stuff will become increasingly less difficult and thus less interesting. But maybe it might be a cool idea to have some additional challenges intertwined there, maybe during certain event weeks, or have a rotation going on to make these heists seem like they're always something different to approach with and potentially maybe a little bit more difficult. It might sound silly when I say this, but potentially it might be a cool idea to have something like a challenge that is weekly and kind of going in rotation to kind of give you something to work towards if you're not really that knowledgeable about the heist, or if you're someone who knows what they're doing and has been playing the game for a while, to then have something to kind of go for and make the heist approach feel different every single time you approach it. The theme I'd personally like to go for would definitely be a bank robbery. Maybe the story can be that after years of robbing the Flica and the Pack Standard Bank, they finally decided to upgrade their security systems and now have it so it's more difficult to rob. Obviously keeping the original heists the way that they are, because you don't want to ruin that. Or if you would prefer to make sure that we don't do the same thing twice, we could have a story of Martin Madrazo's statue from single player potentially landing in the wrong hands and they have to be reacquired. Whatever the theme or story will be, I personally like to focus on the gameplay aspect of it. Gameplay wise, I'd love to see the new heist follow the same path as Casino, and maybe even Rico in some way. I really like the idea of being able to approach the same heist in multiple different ways, and think that there's definitely room to repeat the same formula, but with some necessary tweaks. I'd argue that getting rid of the free mode aspect of the prep missions wouldn't be a bad idea. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but please do hear me out. This way, it will allow Rockstar to potentially do some more stuff with the missions rather than just go here, do a thing, and go back. Instead, we would have set up missions that are designed around the specific goal that is in mind for that approach. Like, for example, a Bitcoin approach where you have to sneak around into a Landromat to grab the disguises that you want to use. Get in and out undetected for potentially even some additional cash money bonuses as well, and then move on to the next step where you have to acquire the vehicles, etc, etc. The prep missions before that in free roam, like in Doomsday, could potentially also be a thing, but I feel that with Doomsday they kind of made them a little redundant at times, and most of the time just really got in the way of the missions that you actually wanted to do. Perhaps these story missions could offer some of the smaller stuff and having to acquire that, or offer you the freedom of the what getaway vehicle do you want to use, or what weapon do you want to use. We have all this stuff available to us from the years of content that we have, so why not allow us to use it, and especially use some of the lesser used content and just give that a bit of a place to shine. The main critique that I always had against the casino heist is that a lot of the prep missions are the same across the board, and only the second half of the prep missions for the heist are really where you start to really prepare for that specific heist. In the next heist, I'd like to see this resolved by making sure that when you play a Bitcoin approach, you're just doing stuff for that approach only, and do something completely different again if you're going for an aggressive approach, for example. Setup missions again would allow this, and if I may be so honest, Rockstar has become better at making more interesting missions in the game lately, so I'd love to see how they could approach a new heist. If you look at the Contract DLC and the latest missions released in the UOP missions, you can tell that there's definitely some more depth and some more interesting things happening within those missions, as if you would compare that to the original Heist and more. So in conclusion, I think GTA Online definitely has room for another Heist, especially with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. There is room to make something truly great, utilizing that power to open up some of the doors that Rockstar would probably love to have a crack at. I definitely would be very keen to see. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with me, and would you like to go back to a more structured setups approach, or would you prefer to stick with the prep missions in free roam? Or would you not really care for a new Heist DLC at all and think we have enough, why even bother? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and if you really like what you see on the channel, please do consider becoming a member like Chloe, KFC Chicken and Shapeshift Gaming. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all later.